everybody, to another episode of the Red, White, and You Show, and I'm super excited for our next guest, Dominic Pace. For those of you that remember from the Red, White, and You radio show, he was my in-studio guest way back in June when he was in town, him and his son in Fargo doing the Roger Maris Celebrity Golf Tournament and checking out the sights and sounds of the big town of Fargo, North Dakota. And, you know, for those of you not familiar with Dominic and his work, you know, Dominic was recently featured as a bounty hunter. Gekko is the character's name in the new TV series Mandolorin on Disney Plus. And, you know, the new Star Wars mini series talking about season 1. If you haven't seen it, please go out and check it out. It's just an awesome series. And then as well as Dominic, for those of you not aware, Dominic has 20 plus years in the I can't even speak, entertainment industry, and has over 100 movie and TV credits to his name, working in a tremendous, you know, long list of movies to include, you know, roles in Superstar, Desperate Housewives, Prison Break, you know, My True Fairy Tale, Psychosis, Follow Me, and the list goes on and on and on, right? But I want to welcome Dominic. Welcome to the Red, White, and You Show.
Thank you so much, Dean. Happy to be here, and hello to all your listeners.
Awesome. So a lot of people don't realize, you know, growing up in you grew up in Yonkers, New York, correct? If I remember right?
My grandparents were in Yonkers. I grew up in Ossining, New York, famous for a prison called Sing Sing Prison. It's almost like the Alcatraz of the East Coast, a very famous historic American prison right on the Hudson River, about 40 minutes north of New York City. Nice,
nice. And one of the things I know that your grandfather, just a big figure in your life, is or was just a tremendous. He was he played a big part as far as in the veteran connection, right? As far as one of the first. Now, I think you were sharing with me, correct me if I'm wrong, that he was he part of the first wave in Normandy on D-Day?
That is correct. That is correct. He was a member of the 4th Infantry at Utah Beach. They did suffer a high amount of casualties. It's funny that, well, not funny, but coincidental that we're talking about it, just because next month I'm visiting France for the first time, and I will be taking a trip up to Normandy to not only honor my grandfather, but all of the soldiers that served and some who gave their life in honor of America and France and the Allied forces there, just to pay my respects to each and every soldier there who were so brave on that day.
Oh, very cool. That is very cool. You know, and it's interesting that, you know, how we cross paths for those not aware. One of the things going back a year around this time, Dominic had shared you know, a colleague of his was looking for actually vendors for a military gifting suite for pre-Oscar party. And and to be really honest, I didn't know who Dominic was at the time, even though I have watched some of the shows that he was in. But I don't know how it popped up in my social media feed. It was just fate, or as the universe likes to, you know, throw things our way. And I was like, so I reached out to Dominic, and he was quick to respond to me. And we started connecting right there. And then one thing led to another, and he asked where I lived. And he said, oh, my God, isn't the Roger Maris Hall of Fame in Fargo, North Dakota? And I was like, absolutely. And when the Red, White, and You Show, radio show, I should clarify, radio show started, I was like looking at guests, and I was like, wow, the Roger Maris Celebrity Golf Tournament is happening. I know a guy that loves Roger Maris or is a big fan of him, and reached out to Dominic about being at least a call-in guest. I never fathomed that you'd have the opportunity or time to come to Fargo to take part in that, and then also which led on to you connecting with the Maris family, and just a lot of cool things that came out of that. But not only personally for me, getting to meet you and your son, and connecting you guys on a deeper level. But the cool thing is that getting to know you, Dominic, one of the things that I found is that you're such a giving individual. And I think that is testament to your success, is that everywhere you go, and I'm, obviously been following since, the Mandolorin came out, is all these different Comic-Cons and different things that you've been going to, is all these fans that you've been giving back to. And I know that you've really made that part of your career work, right? You've been, whether speaking, I know you did that while you were here in Fargo, speaking to a bunch of, actor studio or whatever, and some other folks. But, I see that also on social media, whether it's some kids in the hospital and sending autograph pictures. And I think that's just a really testament, because of, I kind of call it the old school mentality of being able to give back when you can, of what you can, right? And I think that's I just want to say big kudos to you. But really it's, the end of the day, you can tell, excuse me for being frank, but sometimes you can tell when people are bullshitting and when people aren't. And the thing is you genuinely care. That's the thing that I'm trying to say. And that's a testament of your success, and that really aids in that. So I just want to say thank you and continue that great work. But you're so busy, my friend. Like I'm looking at, like, you're going to be in England in February 15th, coming up here soon, right? And then Dallas, Florida, Las Vegas, Alabama. I mean, if you guys haven't checked this guy out, but share with the listeners a little bit what's been going on and kind of a synopsis of kind of Dominic Pace.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to what you were talking about, Dean, just in regards to being giving, and sort of generous in terms of these charities. I watched, again, last night, there was an old movie called The Pianist, starring Adrian Brody. And it took place, obviously, during that World War II era. And again, whether it's my grandparents or your parents or grandparents, you just go back to that generation. And the more education we have with that generation in terms of what the real struggle was, it makes you appreciate more and more our lives in terms of how lucky we are to live in this country, how lucky we are in terms of everything that we have. A lot of times you hear the youth, and there's no question there's issues today that we have to deal with politically and socially. But at the same time, I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you look back in that generation, it puts a lot of things in perspective to how lucky each and every one of us are to just have a roof over our head, a bed, to have our health, to have our loved ones around us. And when you put things in perspective in that way, it just gives you an overall just genuine attitude to help others in terms of life. As far as the tour, this wouldn't be possible without the Star Wars fan base. I literally have probably a minute screen time. The original bounty hunters in Empire Strikes Back, we just lost one of them a gentleman by the name of Alan Miller. They were on screen for probably 1 minute time, but that just is sort of a reflection in terms of how special this franchise is to so many people. These convention reps, these charity organizations, just to touch Star Wars as a one-of-a-kind, unique bounty hunter, it just shows you how strongly it resonates throughout the community, not only within our country, but also throughout the world, to be invited to have the opportunity to be able to attend all of these conventions, but also at the same time to get in touch with these amazing charitable organizations such as the 501st Legion and the Mandalorian Mercs, the Rebel Legion. There's also the Sith Dynasty. Thousands and thousands of people that show their praise not only to the Star Wars universe, but at the same time become ambassadors for the Star Wars franchise in an effort of goodwill throughout their communities. And I can't tell you how excited I am just to be a part of that, to be able to give back and to help others, but at the same time, to have a whole entire year to travel as a bounty hunter is just obviously beyond words. It's such a dream come true.
That's so awesome. That is so, and it's interesting is talking about being part of something that's bigger than yourself. And you talked about, even the Empire Strikes Back, and a lot of those characters only having a minute screen time, but how much of a profound effect and impact it made, not only on them, but everybody else, right? But it's so cool that I had just seen that, where you're teaming up with an organization to do, you're visiting 21 national cities with the anti-bullying and charity campaign. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. These artists, these illustrators, people have been coming out of the woodwork, drawing my character, creating action figures, just so many things that an 80s kid would just dream of in terms of seeing your character created through so many different forms of art. And for me, I just have such an incredible amount of gratitude to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, the creators of The Mandalorian, as well as the makeup artist who brought me onto this project, that it's almost like I have so much money, not literally, but just in terms of the wealth, and just being so grateful for this opportunity. I can't pay it forward enough. So what I did was I joined forces with the Route 66 convention, Comic-Con, which is going to be taking place near Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a town called Claremore, Oklahoma, on April 5th. And they reached out to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I have 5 unique pieces of art, original illustrations of my character Gekko, as well as an action figure, a 6-inch Black Series figure made by an amazing gentleman, John Black, down in Dallas, Texas. So instead of just hoarding everything and just keeping it for my kids, I wanted to pay it forward just as a sign, as a thank you to these 3 gentlemen in particular for giving me a dream of a lifetime. And this is just the beginning. Again, the 501st Legion, they're involved in so many different silent auctions throughout the country. They're involved in so many different children's hospitals throughout the country. So just the fact that I'm able to donate an autograph or my challenge coin or my patch is just beyond words, that's able to earn money for a lot of these charitable organizations of goodwill that benefit local communities. The anti-bullying campaign, I have a number of agents that are repping me. And there's a gentleman by the name of Jeff Durazo, who we just by chance happened to come across down in Dallas, Texas, from a failed visit. I was supposed to have a promoter that was flying me to San Antonio, and it got botched. So I had so many people that are looking out for me, and one of the members of the 501st picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Dom, I know that you can't make it to San Antonio due to a botched agreement, but there's this gentleman, Jeff Durazo, and he's located in Dallas, Texas. He has one of the #1 Star Wars shops in the country. It's called Order 66 Toys." Anyhow, on top of having me do appearances at the store, signing autographs and meeting fans, he also is heading up an anti-bullying campaign. So on February 21st, I will be visiting my first school, and we'll be talking to kids and just in regards to empowerment, being assertive, talking about different forms of bullying. It's not always in the physical. We have to deal with it even as adults, to where people can become condescending, using your words, speaking up, and also using coaches, parents, and teachers to assist you to make sure that you are not a bystander, but an upstander. And really excited to be able to teach kids, empower them. I was a very unique kid as a kid. When I was growing up, I was involved in sports, but also I love musicals. And I also was just very confident in terms of being who I am. And I just wanted to be able to translate that to children who sometimes might be different or might have different hobbies, to be confident in and of itself, within yourself, so that you never have any insecurity of not necessarily fitting in. But the fact that you are your own king, or you are your own queen, in and of itself, without needing the approval of anyone else.
I love it. I love it. I think that, there needs to be more of those campaigns. I think that is just so awesome that you're able to align yourself with that, because number one, I think what I feel with that, Dominic, is not only does that speak to exactly who you are, but also aligning yourself with great organizations and people that are doing great things for for other folks as well, right?
Absolutely, without question. One of the things I also think it kind of gets is sort of covered over is that a lot of these kids that might be bullied sort of think that there's something wrong with them. Whereas, at least in my experience, with just a couple of incidents that I had when I was a kid, it was more about the bully, to where they had their own problems within themselves. They were either intimidated of you because you were different, or they had their own issues going on at home. Now, by any means, that does not make you a justified or make them justified in treating you like a punching bag, either literally or emotionally. But at the same time, I just want to be able to relay that message so the kids understand where it's coming from, that more often than not, sometimes it's a compliment to you, because kids might be jealous in many ways. And that should, in a way, I think, empower you to understand that not everyone is going to like you, but it doesn't mean that it's something that's wrong with you. It has to do with sometimes more on their end of the coin. And when they understand that, I think it might help children cope with it a little bit better, and also be able to address the situation right away and have that confidence.
Awesome. Awesome. Let me shift gears just a little bit, Dominic, and talk about the filming aspect of Mandalorian, because I know there's fans out there that are interested in the movements that you're doing and supporting, but they're chomping at the bit, because I know they always ask. So, of course, always the question is, obviously looking at your character, Gekko, how many hours in makeup did you have to do prior to shooting?
I was in there for 2 hours. 2 hours approximately. It got a little bit shorter after day one because they were able to make a few shortcuts with the top crown and the prosthetic. I was tested before 2 weeks prior. I also had prior experience doubling Frankenstein on Van Helsing, starring Hugh Jackman back in 2002. I was also on Bright with Will Smith. I played one of the orcs. And then also on a couple of episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where I had previous prosthetic experience. It's not an enormous talent, but also at the same time, you cannot be claustrophobic. They want to make sure that your attitude, your personality each and every day is consistent, that you're a professional, just because they are dealing with someone with, they have to deal with someone who has a tremendous amount of patience. It takes also an hour to take the makeup off. But when we're talking about Star Wars, I think that many fans would agree that just being a part of that, it's not like a modern day crime drama where it might be grueling day in and day out. Each day coming to work, even with 15-hour, 16-hour days, was just an ultimate dream come true for a Star Wars fan from the 80s. I just can't say enough about that experience. Those 2 weeks didn't feel like any pain at all, where if it was any other project, you might feel a little bit of fatigue. But the adrenaline was just pumping each and every day, just because I was recalling the days where I used to play with my bounty hunters. And my first playset was a Cantina playset. So in episode 1, where we landed, where is the set? But it's actually in a cantina, a Star Wars universe cantina. So the whole experience was really beyond words. Day 1, George Lucas was there, and then a dream come true for any Star Wars fan. I got to pick out my own blaster, which was just amazing, because I remember forming the blaster in so many of my childhood action figures, and just sitting there holding the blaster in my own hand, thinking that I myself might be played with by a child one day in terms of an action figure, was just something that I would never have possibly imagined within my career.
I was going to say, could you even imagine if you could go back in time to your 8 or 10-year-old self and go and say, you know what, you're going to have an action figure, a Star Wars what do you think you would say to yourself?
Oh, man. It's funny, because one of the best experiences I had as a child in the movie theater was Return of the Jedi in 1983. It was the first time that I heard an applause after Luke saved the day on the skiff guard after he defeats Jabba with Princess Leia there. Just the fact that, never in a million years, as much as I enjoyed that moment within the entire movie theater and the entire packed audience that day in 1983, never in a million years did I ever think that I would be part of that. And again, people asking me, is the character going to continue? I'm very confident that it's going to continue on in comic books and some fiction, potentially, hopefully, the Kenobi series at some point. But even if this is all it is, again, the cup is just half full. To have this once in a lifetime opportunity, it's like winning the lottery and saying, hey, can I win another lottery? I'm just so grateful for this opportunity, and just grateful for all the fans for supporting this this side character bounty hunter. I don't think there's ever been a bounty hunter that's 6'4", kind of shaped like Jason from Friday the 13th. So I think that's a pretty cool feature in terms of an action figure for the kids there.
Right. Oh, funny. Well, awesome. So one of the things, did I hear correctly that are you taking a year off acting to help promote the anti-bullying campaign and go on tour? Is that correct? Did I read that correctly?
That is correct. My agents are under the understanding. I mean, there are certain roles that are called day players, which are co-star and guest star. They only require 1 day of work. So I'm still taking those auditions. But as far as any independent feature films, I'm taking off until season 2 of The Mandalorian, which releases in October. And really just, I think we all hit a certain age, Dean, to where, again, you have to just take a step back and appreciate also where you are, and the fact that I have this opportunity to tour the world. I've always been big on traveling. The Europeans, especially, from Italian roots, are really passionate about, they take 4-week vacations as far as truly just stopping and smelling the roses, and to be able to give back and to help others. This is just going to be a very special year where we switch gears. And as much as I'm very proud of my IMDb, if I have another 3 or 4 credits on there, or minus another 3 or 4 credits just because I took a year off, I'm completely okay with that, just because, again, I wanted to always see the world, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So really excited to invest in that 100% and be able to touch other people's lives. I can't tell you how gratifying that is, as opposed to just focusing on our own dreams all the time.
Right. Well, do you also look at, Dominic, taking that year off of acting as reinvesting in you, and then also honing and perfecting on other things, because you're going to be immersed in other cultures, you're going to be finding other people, different personalities. I mean, Comic-Cons, different expos. I mean, you get the wide gamut of people, personalities, genders, everything that come in, correct?
Absolutely, without question. There's no question. I think this year is going to perhaps take me in different directions. Tonight is the Academy Awards, and it's funny because tomorrow, that's usually the day that I call where actors are, really chomping at the bit. They get up at 7 a.m. because they want to make sure that dream happens, and they're going to get on that podium one day. And again, we wish all the best to everyone, including myself. At the same time, you also have to stop and understand that life is really precious. Our time is precious. And sometimes we may not get there. And we just have to appreciate what we have. And sometimes your greatest worth, your greatest value might be being able to inspire someone else or help them with their dreams. And that's really what we're going to fully invest in. Also, my children, my sons are 14 and 11, just spending more time with them and being involved in their swim meets and their baseball games and practices. We lost a cousin last year to cancer, and my heart goes out to anybody who's lost a family member, short-sighted in terms of not being able to have a full life. But that puts things in perspective even more for, I think, all of us, in that we really need to appreciate the time we're here and be able to really make the difference that we can. And it's not always about personal. It's not always about your career.
Very awesome. Dominic, where can folks go if they want to connect with you, find out where you're going to be next at the next, whether expo or next event?
Absolutely. Just searching Dominic Pace. It's not really that much of a common name on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I think Instagram is Dominic Pace 1. On Twitter, it's Dominic P. Pace. And then on Facebook, you can search Dominic Pace, or also Lair of the Gekko, Lair of the Gekko. There's been some amazing fans who have been so supportive. They created a fan page where I'm a co-admin of it. Lair of the Gekko is also has all the updates and all the illustrations and art pieces, and where you can find me, and just all the upcoming articles as well about the Mandalorian, as well as my travels.
Very cool. Well, Dominic, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you, not only becoming, a good friend, but I'm just so excited for you. I'm really genuinely excited for you, and seeing that, and it's fun to see your son being involved as well. I see him in there every once in a while. So that I'm like, just keep on rooting for you from this end, and the invitation is always open if you want to come back to another Roger Maris golf tournament.
We're going to talk to Jerry Rostad hopefully over the next month. I want to see if there's different guests, but I just have nothing but the utmost respect for the Maris family, everything that they do up there in North Dakota, and to be able to come up and support again. I have that weekend free, so we'll see what happens there this year.
All right, perfect.